so I'm a single mom. I take care of my son exclusively. When I travel, thank God my parents watch him. So when I was traveling in this particular incident, he was not with me. But that was like the hardest part about it too, was being away from him then now for a week. And he has no idea what is going on. And I didn't want him to come to the hospital, as much as that thought crosses your mind, where it's like, should I have him come to the hospital? Like, what if I die? But then it, I answered that question in my own mind with, I wouldn't want him to see me in the hospital.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Recovery After Stroke podcast. Please comment, like, and share this episode, because that makes the algorithm on YouTube and Google push it out to more people looking for inspirational stories of recovery after stroke, especially when they are just starting out on their recovery journey and they're doing it tough and they think that they're the only one and nobody else knows how to relate to them. That's exactly why I started this podcast, because I was missing this type of information when I was recovering, and my aim is to get it in front of as many stroke survivors and caregivers as I can, so that they can be inspired by all the amazing stories of recovery, resilience, and overcoming stroke that my amazing and fabulous guests are sharing. Now, also, if you think the show deserves it, I'd love it if you left the show a 5-star review. Now, this will also help it rank better on search engines, and it will get it in front of more stroke survivors. So combined with leaving a comment, liking, and sharing, this should make a big difference to giving the show an opportunity to appear higher up in the rankings when people do searches, whether it's on their phone or their laptop or their iPad. So go ahead, go to your favorite podcast app and share what the podcast means to you. It really will make a huge difference. Now, this is episode 199. My guest today is Misha Montana, a single mom who works in the adult film industry and experienced an ischemic stroke that may have been caused by a hole in the heart, also known as a PFO. Misha Montana, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for reaching out. Tell us a little bit about what happened to you.
So I actually had a stroke. It was a year ago. It was on April 14th, 2021. I was in, there's a small town about 2.5 hours outside of the city that I live in, which is Reno. It's this tiny little, teeny tiny mountain town called Susanville, California. And I was out there, and about 9 o'clock, I noticed that I lost all of the control of the right side of my body, mostly my arm and hand, and my entire face went out, and I couldn't talk at all. And I didn't realize at the time, what exactly was going on. It's one of those situations I would say, like, I Googled it, and the first thing Google said was, "You're having a stroke," and I thought Google was being a little bit dramatic. So I I did not do anything. I thought I had like some kind of allergic reaction, or I ate bad food somewhere, because we're in like a super tiny town. And I went to sleep and didn't go to the hospital.
Wow.
The person I was with thought I was having a stroke and offered to take me to the hospital, and I thought that that was overkill. So we went to bed. I woke up in the morning and I still had obviously the same symptoms, and I noticed like my hand was getting like tighter and like throbbing, and like I knew something was wrong at that point because it didn't go away. And so that's when the panic kind of sets in, where you're like, something is seriously wrong. So I actually drove myself to the hospital in Reno, which was 2.5 hours away
Oh
from
my
where
gosh.
I was, with one hand, driving like, and just stroking out the whole time. And I was panicking the whole time. Like, then I knew like something is like seriously wrong. So I tried to get to the hospital as quickly as possible. And I walked in and it was COVID. So I had the mask on and I took it off, and immediately they're calling the stroke codes over the intercom. And even then I was like, are you sure it's stroke? Like, why would I was 31 years old at the time. So I was like, I don't know why I would have a stroke. And what they ultimately determined was I was in the hospital for almost a week, multiple CAT scans, MRIs, different testings. The initial thought that they had was that it was COVID related. And after talking to different doctors later on, I had the Pfizer COVID vaccine, the second dose, 7 days prior to the stroke. And now the theory is that I had a blood clot from the vaccine that traveled to my heart, and I had a previously undiagnosed heart condition. I had a PFO, and it shot the clot to the left side of my brain. And the brilliant neurologist that I had noticed that that was indicative of having a PFO, which I never knew. And 25% of the population is also unaware that they have that same birth defect. So after I was out of the hospital, a month later, I ended up having heart surgery as well to fix that hole in my heart. So it was a very interesting couple of months. It's been a very interesting life post-stroke period. But,
I love how you play it down. It's been an interesting couple of months or whatever. And I love how you play down, Google was wrong. I drove for 2.5 hours stroking out, you know.
No big deal.
Yeah.
It was, and like, looking at it now too, especially, I mean, even immediately after, I really like the magnitude of how serious that could have been, and it is serious. I got so lucky, and that's all I can say about it. Like, I don't know, some people don't believe in luck or coincidences or chance, but like I definitely believe that I was lucky, because and the fact that I regained I'd say like 90% of my physical, my face, my arm, my hand is operable. My speech came back for the most part. I stutter here and there, and have different ailments that are permanent. Like aphasia is the worst one that I have for sure. Aphasia and depression. Those are the things that when people see you, they're like, oh, it's so great that you survived that stroke. You look fantastic. Like nothing ever happened. And it's like, oh, thanks. Thank you. But up here, it's the invisible side effects that are the worst. Like, I almost would rather have my face be a little off than have horrible, severe, like, anxiety and depression, and then like not be able to remember my day or anything that I have to do. Like my memory is terrible. And my neurologist at the time said, give it a 6-month baseline. And that's kind of where you're going to be at. And every day it's about 6-month mark. I was like, I'm just like hoping I would remember more, and not to knock the progress that I made, because I think that that's triumphant in itself. But it definitely, it's the unseen parts of it that are the most damaging for sure.
Yeah.
And then I had a weird thing where my 1-year anniversary was just about almost 2 months ago. And right around that time, like a month or two leading up to that, I started having weird like blackout kind of things where I would black out and then be somewhere else, and like just weird memory.
Spaced out.
Yeah, just, and then like for like, and it's not one of those things where some people wake up in the morning, and especially I travel a lot, so you wake up, you're like, oh, I have no idea where I am, but you get it right away. Where with me, it actually takes like minutes to try to like come back to reality. And I'd be like in the middle of the day, just like standing there, and I'll just have like a blackout and I won't know where I am. I'll be in a thought that I had or a memory that I had. It's a weird phenomenon. And it just kind of started around then. And then I started having the same kind of like symptoms come back. And I didn't think anything about it until I started talking to other survivors. And apparently that's a
Normal.
fun, common thing.
Yeah, normal. It's something that you
Yeah.
create the psychosomatic response, and you bring it on because of the significance of the anniversary, because you're taking yourself back there. You're doing all the things that are, you're remembering what it was like to go through that, and you've put this date as the date of doom and gloom and all this terrible thing, and it doesn't really mean anything. This next date, 12 months ago, it doesn't actually mean anything, but we make it significant. And I'll ask stroke survivors all the time, do they celebrate their anniversary, or is it something that's not good? And a lot of people absolutely hate their anniversary,
Interesting.
and how weird is it that you're good the day before the anniversary, you're good the day after the anniversary, and the day of the anniversary, you're a mess. And it's so bizarre that people do that to themselves. I remember being in a car lot at a shopping mall where I've done all the shopping, and then I have to do the part where you go back to your car, and I've got no idea
Where?
Yeah, I haven't forgotten. I've actually got zero idea where the car is. And I'm going from car park to car park and walking up and down all the levels and all the aisles trying to find the car. And I ring my brother, I think, or he calls me, and we're just chatting about other stuff. And he's going, "What are you doing?" And so I'm walking around the car park. He goes, "Why?" So I've got no idea where my car is. I haven't forgotten. I just zero. It's just not in there.
Recollection.
Yeah, I can't bring it
It's
back.
gone. Yeah. It's literally just gone. And that's what people don't. It's not like it's different than other like memory diseases or defects, because it's literally just not there. There's nowhere to even recall it from. It just doesn't exist anymore. It just black hole. I do it all the time too. Like, I travel a lot, like I said, and then I've gone to the airport 2 hours after my flight had left. And it's like, no reason other than your mind is it's just not connecting to things. And people don't, their sympathy too for anything is very short-lived. It's temporary. When you're in the hospital and kind of like maybe a couple weeks after you get out and you're in your immediate recovery, people are sympathetic. But then 6 months later, a year later, they're like, "Oh, are you still using the stroke as an excuse for things?"
Wow.
It's like, oh, but they don't,
they're ignorant. And how can they get it when they've never had a stroke? It's just like we were ignorant before we've had a stroke. We've got no idea.
100%. And I was just going to say the same thing. I was like, I don't even blame them, because like I had no idea about what strokes were. I didn't even, it's so ignorant to say now, but it's like, I thought strokes were mostly older people had strokes, same thing with heart attacks. Like, not saying that it doesn't happen, but it was rare for anyone under the age of 65 to have a stroke or a heart attack in my mind. And the more that I talk to a lot of survivors, reach out to me daily, weekly, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing for me. It's difficult for sure to hear a lot of these people's stories, because most of them are so much more severe for either themselves or for people that they know. Most of the people that reach out to me, their loved ones have passed away from strokes. Various ages, different circumstances. Like, it's really a fascinating spectrum of people. Like, And it's amazing how common it really is. And I never knew that before. And I mean, I'm sure you didn't either. Why would we, you know?
No idea.
But to learn more about strokes themselves and then the people that their different experiences and recovery, it's really a fascinating um, topic. I wish it wasn't so prevalent, but it's amazing how many people are affected by it,
One
whether
in
it's
four.
themselves or people that they know.
1 in 4,
One
Misha.
in four.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what the stroke organization, World Stroke Organization states. 1 in 4 people will have a stroke in their
In their
lifetime.
lifetime, right?
Yeah, it's
Which is
mental.
insane. That's a huge amount of people. Um,
Yeah.
and I think again, most people hear statistics like that and they think that you know, oh, it's probably reserved for like a later part in life, which is not the case at all. There was even Haley Bieber, Justin Bieber's wife, is
Yeah.
25 and she just had a stroke also. Um, it's interesting, like, and it's so shocking when you hear like younger people having them. Um, Obviously, in our like case, like we're not 65, so you know, um, it's really a tragic
Yeah.
situation.
So
So
tell me a little bit about like the kind of person you were before stroke, because now you're telling me that you suffer a little bit from depression and you've got some other stuff. Tell me about your personality, what kind of a person you were, and how the strokes impacted that and changed you a little.
I'm a super like I would consider myself to be a perfectionist. I'm an extremely professional person, so I'm very like business oriented. For me, the worst part about it was it affects every element of my life, as far as like making appointments, doing things where you have to be on time. And I swear, like never in my life have I ever missed an appointment or missed a phone call. I almost missed this because I have to put constant, you know, reminders, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God, it's today. I have no concept of like the day. So for me in the position that I'm in too, I run production, and I'm responsible for making other people's schedules, let alone my own. And so it dramatically affected my work. I've been lucky in the sense where I've been on top of it so much, but it requires that much more effort and energy to just be normal, or my previous normal baseline.
Yes.
I have to do this much more
Yeah.
to make it equal to what I was before. I'm faking it. Like, I don't know if it's well, but I'm trying to fake it
Yeah.
to make it be like how I was before so that no one would notice.
Yeah.
And I've always been, because I'm so like high strung with my work, and my stress load has always been really high. I overload myself, but I've never been depressed the way that I was, and have been on and off. Like I still am. Like I have bouts of it here and there too. So to be have that feeling of being like trapped inside your own body and brain, um, and not being able to have any kind of connection with someone in your life that understands you
Yeah.
or understands that situation, it makes it that much more difficult too. So I've never really been isolated to that level. Um, and I had to pretend like everything was fine.
So
And it wasn't fine
you're around people all the time, every day, and yet
all the time.
you still feel isolated.
I do like, and I still kind of feel that way. There's just something that's never been able to be like shaken from that time, that I just feel like I'm in a dark little cave by myself and I have to like pull myself
Mm,
out of it daily just to accomplish the day-to-day tasks.
yeah.
And that's why I went back to work right away. I didn't take a break from work because I thought that that was going to be something that was like distracting myself from the darkness that was in my own mind too.
Yeah.
And that was healing in a way in itself, because it gave me a focus other than not like self-loathing, but just like being obsessive about it, or, being paranoid that I was going to have another stroke. All these different feelings and emotions that you naturally go through, I kind of ignored them. I I shouldn't have, because it cost me in the end, because I waited, almost to the year mark, just kind of like pushing it off, not really ever acknowledging, or even honestly fully giving myself enough time to heal and recover.
So, in your
So
business, did you start that off on your own? And did you ever reach out to anybody for any assistance, guidance, information, tips? Did you ever do any of that?
I didn't, actually. I didn't do it right away at all. But that's because that's my personality type, is
Yeah.
stubborn and don't ask for help.
So,
And
I set that up on purpose. I wanted to catch you out and say to you, now that's it. Now's the time to reach out and get help for how you're feeling emotionally, psychologically, physically, because this is completely unknown. And it's not like starting a business or working on your business or employing people or anything like that. It's about self-support, self-promotion, self-healing, self-recovery. And we are the worst people to help ourselves a lot of the times. We need other people to guide us and give us the ability to overcome what we just experienced, because it's traumatic, Misha. I mean, you've gone through a life-altering situation. It may have killed you, and maybe you haven't thought about your mortality yet, but I get a sense that part of the challenges that you're going through are the fact that you're 31, you've had a stroke, and you're realizing now that you're mortal, and you never knew that before 31, So does that
100%.
relate?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's probably what a lot of the anxiety and the depression comes from, that realization, and not feeling like, people immediately around you. Again, I've tried to explain it to people in my professional and personal life, and they just don't understand, which I don't expect them to at some point too. That's why, later on, about, I'd say, like, I think 6 months in, I started seeking out other survivors and doing different podcasts. And honestly, the two that I've done, with Bill and with Joe, they've been wonderful resources, and just somebody that can share your experience. Like, every time I get to talk to somebody who's had a stroke, there's just that unsaid like bond that we all have with each other, where it's like, I understand you, I get you. And it's comforting too. It's like, it gives you a feeling of that you're not alone in this.
Just to give you an insight into me and my challenge with this whole thing, right? I was 37, that was 10 years ago. And I need to speak with people constantly about this, so much so that I started a podcast, and I've done nearly 200 episodes, and I've not done enough. And I'm still not done connecting with people and talking about it and sharing stories. So, like, it is a huge thing for me if I hadn't had these 200 episodes, I honestly don't know who I would be today, like how bad in a psychological space I would be. And I'm someone that goes to counseling, I go to coaching, I coach people and I support people, and I still need all of this level of support, because my wife has got no idea. I don't want her to ever have an idea what it's like. So I can't continuously lay down all the stuff that that stroke is about to her every single day, because she can't cope with it and she doesn't even know how to help other than being an amazing wife, right?
Right.
And the rest of my family are also oblivious to it. And I look quote unquote normal, but
Right.
I live with it every single day, and I feel the feelings that it left me with every single day. And I it's made me think about things really, really deeply. One of those things is my own mortality and my own potential death at some point in time. And I'm coming to terms with it, and I'm getting better about it, and I'm feeling better about it. But it didn't happen in the first 12 months. I was just as terrible. I was just as upset, unwell, mentally, socially, emotionally, and physically. It's taken 10 years of constantly working on myself and doing personal development stuff and all the things that I had avoided for 37 years. Because, like you, I knew how to do it all on my own. I didn't ask anyone for help to start my business. Um, I learned things the hard way. I was stubborn. I didn't want to prove that I didn't know. And then here I am 10 years later, and I can see how far I've come. And I've overcome most of those things, but they all do turn up every once in a while. The anxiety, not the depression. I wouldn't call it depression, but I would call it, for me, it's kind of like low days where I'm doing doom and gloom kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and then the thing that helps me the most is what you're saying, is connecting with other stroke survivors that understand me constantly, making a point of sharing the information I learned and then sharing the information that you're learning to the people that are listening. So I think what I want to do is I want to give you a sense of it's going to be better down the track, and you're very early on in your stroke recovery. It's not like a broken bone.
Right.
But it gets better. It gets better and better and better. But it does need you to do a little bit of work as well. Like, you need to do some work in supporting yourself to get better. And that's why you need to pick up some local amazing counselors or coaches, or somebody who's going to guide you further.
I agree 100%. I actually one of my majors in college was psychology, so I'm kind of like that person that knows exactly what to do but then refuses to do it for themselves. um but no, I agree. I think it's critically important, especially, you can ignore things or pretend like everything's fine for so long until it starts like rearing its ugly head, and then what do? Then it's a total disaster, which has happened. I've had just bizarre outbursts and breakdowns that I never would have had before, and I almost like was so I pushed it off so much that I didn't even recognize that that's what it was from. I didn't know what it was from, but then it was like, oh, it can't be from the stroke. I started conditioning my own mind to be like, that happened a year ago. There's no way that it's from that, which is not accurate at all. And I know that. I mean, I've come to the point where I realize like what's happening, and that I do have to put in the effort and the work, and B, I think we're so critical of ourselves, and to not feel quote unquote normal or like your old self, and you judge yourself at where you were before. And so I think that's, it is, it's like that constant comparison of like, well, I could have done this a year and a half ago, why can't I do it now? And just giving yourself the break, or even just the slack, to be like, you know what, it's okay that I'm not okay right now. And that's what I've been saying the past couple months. Like, it's okay for me to admit that I need a minute. I need some time. I need some time alone. I need this. I'm recognizing what I need and establishing those boundaries, so that I can get, just for my own mental and mostly mental health, but emotional and physical health as well. you need to take care of those things. And it's like you said, it's not a broken bone kind of event. It's not like broke your ankle, it heals, and then you could probably go back to 99%, normal activity, resume normal activity. With us, this is our brain that's damaged. So there's a lot more to it. And it affects, it has changed my personality and mood and routine and sleep patterns and everything else. Which I'm sure it has with you as well.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, like you wake up one day and you have to accept that you're never going to be the same person again. And that's something that I think a lot of people have a difficult time accepting.
Yeah.
Because it
identity
brings up fear.
Yeah, it brings up fear because of change, and identity is impacted.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
If there's a time to heal, a rest, to recuperate, and give yourself space, now's the time. Give yourself the opportunity, the permission to do that now. I know that it still gets in the way of your work, your time, your deadline, the kind of person that you were. All those things change, but you've got to change your identity with this stroke thing that's happened to you. And if people have a very small description of themselves, when you meet somebody at a party and they say, what do you do? And they say, I'm an accountant. And you don't get anything else from them. All they say is, I'm an accountant. And then say they have a stroke and they can't do numbers and they don't identify as anybody other than the accountant, then their identity is gone immediately.
Yes.
If they're not, I'm an accountant and I'm somebody who enjoys walks, bike rides, I'm a father, I'm this, I'm that, I'm whatever. If they are just an accountant, then they're going to struggle with who they are. They're going to have those questions of I can't do numbers now. So what am I? What use am I? How am I going to operate in this world? And then they have to reinvent themselves and find themselves, but they have to do that while they're recovering from a brain injury. That's hard. And adding reinventing yourself into brain injury recovery and all the other stuff that goes with it, it's a big task and it takes a while and the effort is huge and the fatigue kicks in and the interruptions kick in because of the appointments and the scans and all the stuff that we've got to do to make sure that we're okay and that everything's been sorted. And it's far out. This could take a while.
It is. It's interesting that you say that too, because, whenever you meet someone and usually the first thing people bring up is, well, what do you do? I do this, as if that's the most prominent, definitive aspect of someone is their career. And you're right, when you have a sense of identity crisis when you tie yourself so heavily to your career or your wealth, different kind of superficial factors that most humans attach to. So when you lose the ability to do those things, for example, with me, the first thing which is crazy, people think that I'm crazy for this line of thought, that first and foremost, I have a 5-year-old son who has cerebral palsy, and that was the biggest concern that I had in my mind, is my ability to take care of him. And that's a real concern. The second thing was I was so terrified to lose my career. And it was that. It was like, this is my sense of identity. There was actually an article posted about me in Daily Star. The one of the quotes that I gave someone was, I was joking that I would have to do certain activities left-handed because I couldn't use my right hand. I couldn't use my mouth, and my line of work, that's a huge deal. So it was like, but to lose that, I was so afraid to do it. And that's why I went back to work 2.5 weeks out of the hospital.
Wow.
When I should not have. But I did it because I was so fearful of like not being able to do it. I did it so that I could show myself that I could still do it, or I was curious to see if I could. And I can, but still in my mind, I'm not the same person when I show up to do things. It's like numb in a sense to things. And I have to, it's like, when you're pumping the train full of coal and it's just running at 100 miles an hour, no one sees that part. They just think it's running smoothly.
Yeah.
When, it's about to fall off the tracks. Like nobody sees what's happening underneath the hood of everything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I was at. It was like, I'm trying to maintain this facade of some semblance of normalcy, and it just wasn't, it's not working at some point, because you can only hold up that illusion for so long. And then when it does, the curtain finally falls, it's messy, and then people think, they're like, what is wrong with this girl? She's having a full-blown mental breakdown. It's like, because of what had happened 9 months prior. But nobody links those two things together at that point because it was so far in the past.
Yeah.
They're like, no, that can't be that.
They don't link they don't join the dots, but also you're not forthright in coming to them with information about how your last 9 months have been. You're withholding as 100%. Much information as you can so that you can appear normal, so you can go back to work. And they're trying to connect the dots, and they're going, she was back at work a week, a couple of weeks later, and now 9 months later, she's saying that this is connected. How could that possibly be? She wouldn't have been back to work by then. And then it's like, they're all confused. They don't know about stroke, and they don't know about all of the psychological challenges that you're going through to convince people you're okay, and that you can still perform, and that you can still do, be professional, and you can still do all these things. You're playing this, you're putting on this facade, and then people get caught out 9 months later going, wow, she never made it appear as though there was any issues, and I'm not intelligent enough, or I don't know enough about stroke to be able to pick up that it was a facade. They've got no idea.
Yeah, I really don't think that people have, most people don't have the ability to look that far into it with other people too, where they take things at surface value. Like if I tell you that I'm okay, most people are going to be like, okay, cool. Good for you.
Especially when you first see him in the morning. How are you? Good.
Yeah, great.
And that's it. We move on.
Me too. Yeah, everything's great.
Yeah. And
that's like, everything's perfect all the time, right?
Yeah. And nobody ever says, I'm having a really shit day, or the stroke's really messing with me today, and I'm stuffed, because the other person on the other end of that conversation, when they ask you, how are you? They actually just want to hear good so they can move on.
Right.
They're not interested.
They don't want to hear anything other than
you.
that.
Yeah.
If you actually were like, you know what, actually, let me tell you how my day is, they'd be appalled, because it's like that. It's just kind of disingenuous. Like it's almost like a courteous thing. Like, I have to ask you how you're doing. I don't. And
they will never ask anyone ever again. If somebody says to them, my stroke did this, and I've had that, and this, they'll never ask anybody ever again.
No. Never again.
So what happened with your son when you were in hospital, and how long did you spend in hospital?
I was in the hospital for 5 days. And my son, I'm a single mom. I take care of my son exclusively. When I travel, thank God my parents watch him. So when I was traveling in this particular incident, he was not with me. But that was like the hardest part about it too, was being away from him then now for a week. And he has no idea what is going on. And I didn't want him to come to the hospital, as much as that thought crosses your mind, where it's like, should I have him come to the hospital? Like, what if I die? But then I answered that question in my own mind with, I wouldn't want him to see me in the hospital. As far as he was concerned, I went to work, which I typically do, travel, and then I just might not have come back. So, and it was COVID, like the restrictions at that point were really, really severe. So I could only have one person come in a day anyway. But I just didn't, that environment is like, especially for children. I remember having to go to, like, my parents would make me go to the hospital to see my grandmother in the hospital. And it's just traumatic.
Yeah.
And awful. It's not even like, I mean, one, it's seeing them in that situation, and, you know, the gown, and like, it's really just like not the best way to remember someone. So I decided not to have him come, but thankfully, you know, my parents took care of him. But that was the biggest thing on my mind the whole time was, I mean, if I have a serious brain injury, and at that point, like, my whole face was completely gone. They put me on a swallowing restriction because of the neurological damage. They didn't know if I could swallow solid food. So how am I supposed to take care of a special needs child when his father doesn't support him or myself in any way? I've never asked for child support. I've never, you know, nothing, custody, any of that stuff. So I have 100% custody of him. There's no one else that can care for him but me. So that's again where mortality comes into play, because it makes me like, it turns the microscope onto your situation and be like, well, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, that's the same thing. Like, what would happen then? So you start looking at it more intensely than I think like you would if you didn't have such an event happen.
Yeah,
so
well, you
where,
didn't
like,
before that,
paranoia
right?
comes. What's that?
You didn't before that. You didn't
Oh no, definitely
consider
not.
it before that stroke. So your son,
No.
to what extent is he challenged by cerebral palsy? What are his challenges?
He, thankfully, it's not severe. He actually had a stroke in utero.
Gosh.
When he was just about to be born, that wasn't caught until about 3 months old, which is actually relatively early for which I'm thankful for. We caught it really early. So he's been in physical occupational speech therapy since he was 3 months old. And a lot of people, same kind of thing, when they say, oh, he looks normal. You know, you can't even tell that he has that. I mean, which, you know, they're trying to be polite, but
Yes,
one of those, they're trying. They just
they're trying
don't,
to play it down and make you feel better because they don't know how to be around persons who are unwell or struggling with a condition. Does your stroke make it easier for you to understand your son?
You know, I actually think having him go through that diagnosis, and with all the challenges that I was facing daily before the stroke, that actually gave me, I think, more of like a cushion and like different tools that I wouldn't have had to be more sympathetic with myself and with others. I think he has given me a lot more comfort and insight into my own situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting, it's ironic, I guess, too. Like, he had a stroke totally unrelated. It's not a genetic thing. It's just, a bizarre coincidence. But no, going through cerebral palsy with him, he's now, he's almost 6. Going through this for the last, almost 6 years with him, that event actually changed me into a person that almost made me more capable of being able to withstand the stroke. And having that kind of a mindset that was receptive and open to having a disability. Before, where 8 years ago, I don't know what my state of mind would be like dealing with it. So I think having him actually really has helped me a lot. It doesn't change the internal workings that I have, but I really think that it's helped a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. But it also it enhanced my anxiety and paranoia and the fear of, that realization, like you said, mortality. It's like, I could have died from this, and what would have happened to him? So then I'm constantly now fixated on that subject. Like, what if something happens to me?
So it
And
sounds
that's
like
not a healthy pattern at all.
no. It sounds like you need to put in a few steps in place to protect him in the event that something else happens that we can't control.
Right.
And I think that's going to put your mind at ease. If you put some steps in place for, I don't know, some kind of funding or something, anything that is going to make it possible for you to sleep better at night, knowing that he's looked after to an extent, that might make it better for you.
Well, and I did that too, like, just semi recently. I've always had some things set up for him, but I mean, I really went into trying to figure out what I could establish so that he would be taken care of. And it does give you some relief. It's kind of interesting too, because my father is a probate attorney, estate planning, which is again ironic. And I never had a will, which we were like, that makes no sense. But I didn't, because one of the things like he deals with clients is that people are hesitant to make a will because they think that they're setting themselves up to die. So I don't know if it's like that superstition that I avoided for a long time myself. I don't think it was superstition. I think it was just literally like I thought I was young and had no need to be concerned with such things, which is such an ignorant way of thinking about the world. But
I did my will after the 3 bleeds and brain surgery is when I did my will. I finally got it done. Yeah.
So you had brain. What do you mind? I haven't heard your story, so I'm sure you said it like a million times.
I had a bleed in the brain because of an AVM, an arteriovenous malformation, something that you're born with that's there, that is benign most of the time. It does nothing for a lot of people, but sometimes they pop and they bleed. And it bled once in February 2012, and it bled a second time in March of 2012. And then it bled a third time in November 2014. And then I had to have brain surgery. My surgeon just said to me, look, this thing is not going to stop bleeding. And the next one could be the one that ends everything. So you need to get it out of your head. So I had surgery and removed it. And then I had to learn how to walk again and use my left side again. And one of the things that came that it's left me with is numbness on my left side. My whole left side is numb every day. And my balance is a bit off, especially when I get tired. And I get some stiffness and spasticity on my left side when I get tired. But again, no one can see it, any of it. It's just all under my skin and it's not visible. So yeah, in those nearly 3 years between the first bleed and then brain surgery, I had all of the problems that a lot of stroke survivors talk about, but most of them went away. I had a little bit of aphasia. I had a problem with memory. I couldn't begin and I couldn't begin and end sentences sometimes. I couldn't type. I couldn't read. I couldn't drive. I couldn't work. I was angry. I was crazy angry. So, and then at some point, I also experienced not being able to walk and in a wheelchair and not being able to push myself with both arms. So I've had this really broad range of experiences and symptoms because of these bleeds. And it's been a lot to bloody handle and a lot to bear and a lot to overcome. And this year's my 10th year since it all started. And
Wow.
I kind of felt like I needed to celebrate it, but then I didn't. And then one of the reasons is because I talk about it so much that I feel I talk about my stroke and other people's strokes so much that I feel like anniversaries don't mean anything to me. It's like, it's just another day. It doesn't matter. I am grateful that I'm here, and I've changed a lot of things, my personality, the way that I apologize to people, the amount of times I say I love you to my kids and to my wife and to my parents and to everybody. And it's been a blessing and a curse. Like the biggest blessing, because I've had the most growth personally from 37 onwards. And then I've had the most shit to bear in the last 10 years, more than most people cop in a lifetime. And then I meet people like you. And last night I was at a fundraising event called A Night for excuse me, called A Night for Aphasia, where in Melbourne, Australia, there's an amazing lady who I interviewed for the podcast a few episodes ago, quite a few now, is raising awareness for aphasia. And we went there and we met stroke survivors and we listened to them speak and struggle through speech to deliver their speech and to be interviewed and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I never hung out with people like us before that. I never ever hung out with people like us. I never met people from the other side of the planet. I never hung out with people from different cultural backgrounds and different ideas and different experiences. It was this really, I don't know, small, narrow view of the world. And because of the stroke, my view has expanded and it's made it amazing. I've interviewed people that were just regular people like me, and then I've interviewed people that are were a little bit more kind of full on in their lives already, and I've met people that are really quiet that became full on, and people that were full on that became quiet, and it's just so broad. So it's been an amazing learning experience. I wouldn't change it, but I wish it happened without the stroke.
I agree. But I think that it does, in a way, which I think like that you touched on this too. In a weird way, you're thankful for that because it gives us, like, as much as I, believe me, we wouldn't want it if I had the choice, but it gives you a unique perspective on life, on relationships, on love, on the world, that honestly a lot of people will never have in their life. And I don't know if that's something that is a blessing, because sometimes it's like ignorance is blissful, I think.
Can be for some.
Like, I envy the ignorance.
Yeah.
Because at least, like, if you were ignorant, then you'd have some sense of peace once in a while. Yeah. I think, being awake to everything has its ups and downs. It's a double-edged sword. But I
Yeah.
really do think that we have, it's a gift in a sense, because it's how you choose to look at it. And that's why when I start feeling, negative thoughts, it's if I open up my email and I meet somebody, or talk with people, and just talking to me, which I think is crazy still to this day, but people reach out to me and it changes their whole day.
Yeah.
Hearing about my story, or the fact that because I'm, a public figure in a sense, like people reach out to me or they look to me, and it does actually impact people, to
They
be
look to
honest
you.
about it.
They look to you as a guide. Now, you're an adult entertainer. You make adult movies, right? And I've seen your Instagram, and then there's and your Instagram promotes the work that you do, right? And
It
then
does.
there's a post from you, and then there's a post from you talking to the camera about your stroke and all the stuff that you've been going through and all the challenges that you're facing. And it's like, if
Out of place.
yeah, it's out of place, but it's like, it's that thing that makes you then a real person, because the other person, the other version of you, is an adult entertainer, an actor playing a role. And then your fans or the people who've seen your work will look at it and they'll go, they'll have an opinion and an idea of that person that you portray on film, and then they'll get blown away when they see you just act, to your phone, talking about your challenges and what you're trying to overcome, and then that'll just make you like an even greater fan. They'll make them an even greater fan to you. Like, they'll see another level of you that's more authentic, and they'll go, oh my gosh, this person's a real person. She has feelings. She's been through a really tough time. And they'll relate to you in another way that they've never related before. So I get that it's weird for you that people reach out to you for this type of connection and this type of information, because they do it to me. And I'm like,
It's surreal.
I'm going to say
Yeah,
this
why
is going to
me?
sound weird as well, right? I have fans. This is weird that I even say this, and people get kind of starstruck when I invite them onto the podcast with me. I'm like, do you know who I am? Like, you've got no idea. I'm just a weirdo in my garage in Melbourne, Australia, that's put some stuff on a wall, and in front of me there's just two monitors and a ring light, and that's it. Like, I'm not that.
But you are. That's the thing. Like,
Well,
and it's
apparently.
that's mine. It does though. It's like, and I'm the same way. I'm like, even to this day, I'm like, I've always like like overwhelmed with how people view me in the way that they do. And I don't know if that's something that I'll ever get over, but it's like, it's just kind of interesting because when they reach out and they're like, so what I did with my stroke is I created an adult showcase DVD. And it's never been done in the history of adult film, which, believe it or not, because everything has been done, right? We did a documentary style showcase that actually has the stroke in it and my whole life in it. My son is not in it, but mentioned, things like that. And that movie changed the industry this year in a way that I never thought it would. My whole point with doing it is I was very private before. No one knew I had a son. I kept that part of my life. Like, I felt like I put myself out into the public eye so I can be destroyed. I can, I can take
People
it.
can go after you.
Yeah, they go after me. It's one thing. Like,
yeah.
But, I was always afraid of like the people in my life that I wanted to protect from this, because I chose this. They didn't, and when that happened and we started, I had a documentary crew with me for the adult film because we were showcasing, I have unique tattoos. And that was kind of the preface of that whole thing. And it switched directions when I had a stroke. And the direction they went was, this is a human piece. And I am, I'm an EP on that project. And obviously I have a huge role in it because it's about me. But I remember Ivan, who was directing it, called me, and it was the day before it went to cut, because he has all this footage of my son and my dad had a heart attack and all this different stuff that was very, very personal stuff. And he asked me if I wanted to use it, and I was so adamantly like, no, no, no. And then I said, you know what? Yeah, actually. I was like, because if I'm going to stand up here and share my experiences and try to advocate for, authenticity and trying to humanize an industry that's so scrutinized and like demonized, all the time, that I have to be a full martyr for the cause if I'm going to do it. And it's uncomfortable for me. But the stroke gave me an opportunity for a second chance. And it gave me the opportunity to use a platform that I have to advocate and to reach people that might not ever have anyone to look to. As weird as it is that I'm in the industry that I'm in, I still have connections with people on levels that you wouldn't even believe because of that movie. And they're reworking it now into a mainstream documentary, so fingers crossed it'll actually go somewhere. But it's been nominated. This is the 6th award show it was nominated for Best Movie of the Year.
Yeah, that's sensational.
It's crazy.
And it's what you said, like we touched on it earlier. It's like you and I, we come from completely different backgrounds. We're from the other side of the planet. We've only met once. Today is the first time we met, other than that couple of emails we sent to each other. And yet we have that connection because we completely, totally understand this part of each other. We totally understand what each other is going through. And we don't need to know about the rest of our lives, because this part of our life is so significant that when somebody gets us, it means a lot. Like, it really means a lot. And that's why people reach out to you, even though you're from an industry that they are not familiar with, and they go, oh my God, I get this person. She gets me and I get her. And then they do that. They bridge gaps that are vast and wide, from all these other for all these other reasons, that everything just gets bridged, and then the world the view narrows, and then it's just like these two things: stroke. We had a stroke. I had a stroke. We had trauma. She had trauma. I had trauma, and it's like everything just comes together. And that's why I love that thing that you're doing. And I don't know about the adult industry. I've certainly never seen any adult films that show people that are unwell, or people that have had disability, or people that are amputees, or any of that stuff. So I've never seen anything like that. I've never searched for it, but I've never seen it. And I'm wondering, maybe, we're talking about, we're hearing about diversity and about inclusivity and all that kind of stuff, yet there's still so much more to represent about humans other than what happens, on these kind of normal, sort of everyday, the same over and over kind of formula for an adult movie, or even a Hollywood blockbuster or whatever. Well, I think there's much more room for people that are different to be included in these spaces, So
I agree. I totally agree. I think that's why it was kind of one of those things with like this industry where people are like, well, you've probably seen it all. But it's always in this movie, I think, appealed to, because if you think about it, how many, I mean, just last year alone, I would imagine there were 10,000 movies made potentially in a year. And for someone to recognize what I did, it's crazy to me too, because it's means it's literally a top 5, top 10 piece of, history potentially. For me, it already is. It's solidified. I mean, these award shows, it's like the Oscars. It was nominated for the adult version of the
Yeah.
Oscars.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I think that that's impactful in a lot of ways, because everything that you hear too about the adult industry is often negative. It's always tragic. It's always dark. And when I got into the industry, which is again why it's like it's almost like you follow a certain path for a purpose, right? I have always been on that mission to prove that it's not like that. And the stroke, as unfortunate as it is, and suffering consequences from it daily, but it gave me a purpose, and it gave me the tools that I needed to accelerate and promote that ideology with people, that I don't think I would have had without it. It makes me, not that I'm not relatable, but it gives me something to relate to people on a level that they feel comfortable relating to me. I've always felt comfortable relating to other people, but now I think it like levels the playing field and opens it up so that I have people messaging me that like they would never have a conversation with me if I didn't have that in common with them. Like you said, like when you meet stroke survivors, I get so like excited in a sense, like I mean, it's horrible for we know, but it's like, but I'm so excited because I'm like, you actually know what it's like. And like you said, that's why they reach out. And I sit there and have full conversations with them every day. And it's beautiful. And that alone, like that is the most important thing in my life other than my son. It is like making those connections. It's given me that purpose, and I am motivated by that. And it also reminds me of my own circumstances too. So I need that, constant reminder. But it's also a reminder that I can't, one, operate the way that I was before. There's no way. Two, I need to take care of myself. And there's no way that I can help other people if I can't take care of myself in the first place. So that's kind of what it ultimately boils down to. But it's wonderful. Like, and I am so thankful for the story to be out there. And I hope that's what it does. I hope that's the only hope that I have with it, is that it can reach someone on a level that they need in their life, and to know that they're not alone. And it means so much to me to be that person. And it is like, some people find it strange because of the position that I'm in, that I am this candid about my experiences in my life, and it's so unrelated to my career. And a lot of people just kind of put their puppet out there and they do it, and nobody knows about their life, but that's their brand, that's their business. And I was like that myself. I didn't want anyone to know anything about me, but now it gives me so much joy, and it actually does like increase the value of the relationships that I have with fans and with just people in general. Like, they have never seen somebody be that relatable before. And it is I mean, I have never in my life, like, no one's ever seen me cry until this last year, and now everybody just sees me cry all the time. Cry all the time.
And you know what you've done is you've changed your identity from being the person on screen in adult movies to the person on screen in adult movies that's a stroke survivor, that is also a mum of a child who has cerebral palsy. So you see how now you've kind of bridged the gap between being just this one version of yourself to this other multiple different versions of yourself that are all part of the one you, right? And now you've got 50K followers on Instagram, but imagine all the people that have watched your videos. If we say 1 in 4 of them, we know either has or will have a stroke in their lifetime. So there's so many of them already relate to you. And now, how many people know somebody that has cerebral palsy, or how many parents have seen your shows that have children with cerebral palsy, and they relate to you in another level? And that's what I was talking about earlier when I'm talking about how the accountant is just the accountant. If he's just an accountant and not an accountant that does this, this, and that, then you're so limited, and then you struggle so much with your identity shifting after a stroke. And for me, I was just a guy who had a business and painted houses, for a living. And I couldn't do that anymore. And then I had a lot of time at home to try and work out who I was going to become and whether that was going to stay part of my life or not. And it did. It stayed part of my life. But when somebody asks me, what do you do now? I've got a list that goes about for 10 minutes. By the time I actually get it all off my tongue and tell them, again, they wish they never asked. So it's really cool that you've been able to do that. I've seen sometimes, Sharon Stone had a stroke many years ago. The actress Sharon Stone had a stroke many years ago. And I related to her in a different way when I realized that she's had a stroke and spoken about it publicly a couple of times, because she was in the biggest Hollywood blockbusters and then she went missing. And because I'm not obsessed, I didn't try and find out where she went missing to. But then 10 years later, you find out, oh my gosh, she had a stroke. And it's like, wow, okay, that makes sense. And now I can relate to her struggles and her challenges. And
Yeah.
I see her as somebody who is not so distant from me. Like, I can't reach out and relate to her because I can only, I'll never know what it's like to be a Hollywood star. So I can't relate to her, but now I can. And I wish I didn't, but I do now. And that makes her more of a person, because now I'm seeing beyond the characters that she's played.
Right. Which is interesting when that happens too, because, in Hollywood and like in my industry, I am a character. I'm not myself, right? I mean, it's a part of you, and sometimes there's a blurred line between how much of the authentic you is in that role versus the persona that you've created. And a lot of people have identity crises because of that. But when you're in that role, people like bizarrely like put you up onto a pedestal where you're like unattainable and you're just this figure, like an idol. And it's like, it dehumanizes you so much to where, you're not approachable. You're not, people just treat you in such a strange way until you get brought down to a human level. And that's why I say it was a blessing for me too, because I don't know, honestly, like, no matter what I would have said to try to relate to people on that level and to try to humanize an industry that people are so critical of, I don't know if I would have been able to without having the stroke, because it does bring me down to that level of like accessibility. And just in people's minds, it's like, not saying that that's how I view like the superhero effect, but for some people it is like, to some people I am like their idol, and it's so bizarre to me, but to them it's real, and to be brought down to that level, it gives them even more like hope and excitement too, to have to know that they're like, wow, that girl actually is going to talk to me like a human. I can't believe that, because she's this and this. And as odd as it is to me and to other people in our different professions that have that issue, it's like, I think I've been successful, or at least I hope that I am and will be, in being able to bridge that gap and to be honest and to share my experiences to try to better not only my industry, but just, survivors in general, or for people, like you said, that have CP, for anyone that has any kind of, a health issue or a mental health issue. Those are so important to me. Like, if I can make a difference in one person's life, then that's my purpose in life. So, like you said, it's redefining your purpose and your identity into, this new version of yourself. And it's uncomfortable at first, but I think, like, I'm really embracing it. The only issue that I have is that I have to acknowledge my own, demons with my disease.
The only issue
So
you have with it is you have to actually acknowledge your demons for the first time in your life.
myself,
Yeah.
I can, like, it's kind of like that, like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Um,
Now you have
but
to
I
practice
can't, and
what you
that's
preach.
again, like, you have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, if I'm sitting there advocating for, people to get help and to, like, be honest and to be, outspoken about things, it's like, well, then, you can't, bitch, you have to do that yourself.
That's it. You can't be inauthentic. That's part of the reason why I do this, is because I talk to people once a week on a podcast that comes out once a week, and I give them advice and tips and all sorts of stuff, and I share my experience and all that stuff. And it's like, I cannot be anything less than the person that I am telling you that you need to become, because it doesn't work otherwise. It's not authentic. People can see right through you, and it's all fake. Yeah. So I know
that's why I like, and I tell people, I'm like, I tell them too, like, so we've embraced this this authenticity identity almost too far, I think, at this point, because I tell everybody everything. It's like, yeah, we're having a tough day today. But I think it's good, because again, like, I've gone through things other than the stroke that I'm just going to be honest about and open about, and be like, there are a lot of things that are not pretty in my recovery that I thought about not sharing. But
stroke, what's interesting is stroke is just as taboo as adult film.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, and as soon as people find out that you've had a stroke too, then you're potentially limiting, like, your work. Especially, I can't even imagine somebody goes in for a job interview and they find out you have a stroke. Do you think that you're employable? Like, I mean, honestly, like, somebody's gonna be like, oh, well, it's just an excuse. They have mental problems. They've got physical problems. They're going to go to doctor's appointments and they can't remember anything. Like, there's such a huge stigma around it too, that I think is horrible. And again, it's like, it's just a lack of education. It's a lack of understanding that, you and I were in that same situation before we had a stroke. Most people don't know anything about it. And so I think that, especially what you're doing, what I'm attempting to do is, first and foremost, like, try to spread awareness and promote education. And, for people that, fortunately for them, have not had a stroke, but may themselves or someone that they, know will potentially have one in the future. So it's important to do these things and to advocate for it and to talk to other people and to build the community that we have. I think it's just wonderful, the community that we're in. I've met so many wonderful people, as I know that you have too. So those bonds just mean more than anything. So
yeah,
but I think it's good. What you're doing is great. What I'm trying to do is wonderful. And if we can provide awareness and even just somebody to listen, just to be there.
So now it's been a year.
It has.
What has it what did it leave you with early on? You know how you said you went back to work so quickly. What were the things that you had to overcome when you went back to work? What were you working? What deficits were you working with that people didn't know?
That, I honestly feel like the deficits that I notice are more prominent now than they were a year ago in my own mind. Um, I think that physically they were more noticeable because I've watched, luckily for me, I have a constant, um, well documented
before and after.
life for the last year. So I have actually been able to like see a lot of, different events where I was kind of curious to watch myself to be like, well, I remember how, well, sometimes I remember how I felt in that moment. So I wanted to see what it looked like, on film or to somebody that may not know me. And I pulled it off really well for a while. Um, my speech was limited more, and my face definitely took a little bit longer to come back to where it's at right now. But I really did play it off well. But I started drinking really heavily. And no one knew that for the scenes I was doing. Every single scene that I did before the stroke, I was completely sober. I never needed to drink or, and I was embarrassed about admitting that because I thought that it would provide like just another negative stigma of the industry where it's like, well, of course you did, because they all do that. They're all drunks and drug addicts, and it just contributed to um that idea that that preconceived notion that people have about people in my industry. So I didn't ever want to admit that. And that was a form of coping that kind of started just on set, and then it blew up into um an every week thing, and then turned into an every other day thing, and then turned into an everyday thing, and it just blew up out of control. So, and not to the point like, and I say that, where I never like woke up in the morning and drank all day and didn't take care of my son, but I would drink 2 bottles of wine at night when he was asleep every night.
That's a lot.
So that's a problem.
That's
And
a
that doesn't
problem,
contribute
and that's not helping you recover your brain.
brain. No, and that was the biggest thing too. It was like I have a brain injury and here I am like heavily drinking. That's not helping,
What
my
do you think was
recovery.
behind it?
Physical.
What was behind the need to all of a sudden start drinking?
I think it was just feeling the isolation, and that I put myself into that situation. Like it wasn't um there was nothing else that contributed to that except my own like selfish need to like prove a point to everybody that I could go back to work and not take time off and not get help and just take on the world like I was used to doing all the time. And so it was kind of like that secret escape that I needed, but I wasn't doing it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
It was that I acknowledged that I was suffering. And so I turned to liquor to solve that problem.
To get rid
And
of
it
the
was
suffering in
my head.
your head.
Yeah. So it was like I could fake it throughout the day and do everything the right way and, take care of my son and run my career and the 12 other careers that I have going and paint this really pretty picture for everyone and, even, be an advocate and do all these things. And then at the end of the day, I was so miserable and drained and angry and just totally depressed that it was the only thing that would give me a sense of relief And even though it's like fleeting, it's temporary, and then you wake up and you feel like shit.
A lot of
You
people
know,
take it. Yeah, a lot of people will take it. Yeah.
but
So
it was one of those things, like, and it was so surprising to people too, I think too, that I admitted that recently that I was having that issue reluctantly. That was honestly like more reluctant for me than talking about my son, because of the negative image and impact that it had. But it's like, at the end of the day, like, I'm a human being. That's how some people cope. I've never coped that way in my life. So I was like, I felt that kind of like weird stigmatic shame where it's like, wow, like I am, I have a problem with alcohol. And to admit that, I felt shameful for whatever reason, which is
yeah,
obviously like socially constructed.
yeah.
But I thought it was detracting from the message, which still, if you're going to do something, you have to be honest about
Yeah,
it. And
it's
so I used it as an opportunity to be honest
yeah.
about that and to relate to other people that may have the same issue, that might be afraid to say something,
Plenty of people have had a stroke and went to alcohol when
I believe it.
they're not meant to. But
No.
it's common. It makes sense, and it's not something that you should judge that person about, but it happens. And what we're trying to do is bring awareness into the
Healthier.
situation so that we don't have to judge everybody all the bloody time, and we can always
Right.
just go, okay, well, that was a bad solution to a problem. Okay, what's a better solution to that problem? And it sounds like you became aware of that at one point, and then you started to look for a better solution. Where are you at with it now?
I've actually been pretty good with it in the last month. I went through February, March, April were really bad, heavy drinking months for me, I guess you could say. And there were like other contributing factors to that like time period, but mostly it was just heavy, heavy drinking. So I've been working on limiting my alcohol intake to the point where I was sober for 6 weeks without alcohol. I've been smoking weed a little bit here and there, which is a weird thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never been like a big weed person. Um, and just something to try to like redirect the need to drink. Um, I work out like crazy. I'm a huge workout maniac, bodybuilding, cycling, all of that. So I turn back into that as a positive outlook, what's the word? No, I just missed the whole word. There we go. There's the stroke brain kicking in.
That's all right.
Outlet, outlet, positive outlets. So, working out, doing those things, trying to just mentally align with physical good choices. But it's difficult because when you get into that pattern too, it's destructive, but it's also like comforting. So when you uproot it, you have all kinds of new anxieties and sleep issues that you already have, and then it just enhances it trying to change that whole routine.
Yeah.
So luckily though, I've gotten to a point where it's definitely under control, where it was not before. I had major I had like the biggest mental breakdown of my entire life. Like I actually had like some suicidal thoughts, which I've never had, and I've been open about that experience. So it's all a learning experience, and everything that I'm experiencing, I'm being honest about, so that other people that might feel some sense of shame in admitting what they're going through, they could have someone to relate to, or at least to sympathize a little bit with what's going on. Because a lot of people hear these things and they're like, wow, like you're batshit crazy. or, you know, it's just simplified to that level. Like nobody really like looks at the whole picture.
No. As if
And
they're
because
not
they don't care
batshit
enough
crazy.
to do so.
As if
That's
they're
it.
not batshit crazy, that they are so perfect that they see you as being
Exactly.
batshit crazy, and they compare themselves, and they come out perfect on the other ride. So it's like no chance that
Right.
everybody else is quote unquote perfect, normal, or doesn't have any issues, and everything is all right. I think what's good about putting it all out there and talking about everything, every situation, every issue, every problem, is that it makes you more and more relatable, and it makes more and more people feel okay about themselves, because there's so many taboos, and when people are pretending that things aren't happening, they're making themselves really, really unwell even more and more. You know, when you're denying the reality of what's actually happening because you're afraid, I think it just makes matters worse. That's kind of why I do the podcast. It's just so that I can share how, you know, how good, bad, indifferent, stuffed up, normal,
Yeah.
abnormal I am. And it's like,
It's
whatever.
okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. It's okay.
I'm not sure why I shouldn't tell you that I've had bad issues or thoughts or problems or whatever. I'm not sure why I shouldn't tell you. Like, why
Right.
shouldn't I tell you that? And my parents, maybe they were a little bit cautious of what they revealed about themselves. They come from that generation, you know, they're in their 70s and
Right.
late 70s, and they came from that generation where there wasn't a lot said. But I don't live in that part of the world anymore, or in that era anymore. I live in this modern era, and I'm gonna just be what's appropriate now. And I don't
Yeah.
think it's appropriate for anybody to not share. And if you are somebody who wants to share and you're sharing to the wrong people and they make you feel bad, choose different people to share to, really.
100%.
Yeah. And screw them. Don't share to those people who are going to
Yeah.
make you feel bad about stuff.
No.
So that's kind of what I've found. And that's the hard part about doing a podcast, is now I'm sharing to everybody, and they haven't necessarily given me permission to share with them, but they become listeners and fans, or they become the opposite of that, and they never pick up the podcast to listen again. And that's how I filter them out, and that's so easy, right?
It is.
But even if you think that it's weird, you know, if you think that people are nasty to people that hang out in your industry and work in your industry, they're even nasty to me. I have a stroke podcast, and they leave 1-star reviews on.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, but people are, that's what
Nuts.
I've learned. Like, they're just nasty, miserable, horrible people.
Yeah.
And I deal with it more. Obviously, you can imagine what I
Yeah.
deal with on a daily
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah.
I get like death threats every day, and like all kind, I mean, just like radical, out there, horrible, obscene, nasty, just the most foul thing you could think of to say to someone. I hear it all day. And it's like, I read some of this stuff and I'm just like, who taught you how to speak that way to anyone? By the way, I'm a stranger to you. How do you talk to people like that? But anyway, that's beside the point. But no, it's so interesting to me to see. And I've gotten certain like, I don't, so what I do is I don't respond. Sometimes I'll read it. If I start seeing that it's going in that direction, I just usually like yeet it out of my existence. Like, it's delete and ignore, because I don't need that kind of energy in my life. Every once in a while I do, and then like some of them will make me so mad that I actually like write something out to respond. And I've responded in the past to some of these things, and I will tell you, like, there's nothing good that comes from it, because certain people are just looking for company in their misery. So, you know, if you get down to that level with them, the only thing it's going to do is hurt you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so I try to block out any of like that negative attention. Or if I do respond, it's like, you know, I'm really sorry that someone hurt you, or I'm sorry that you're having a bad day and you feel like taking it out on me. um, and I do feel sorry for those people because to be at that level where you're so miserable that you feel the need to attack total strangers, then imagine what kind of pain that they're going through
Yeah.
in their life. And
I,
that's why I try to have some sense of forgiveness for those people.
I think what I hope we've done today actually is I hope we've shared another stroke story and then given the opportunity to people to feel like they can be themselves and also to feel like they can put themselves out there and take a risk to do something that they perhaps didn't ever have the guts to do before stroke. And it maybe is full on as becoming an adult entertainer. It may be as something as simple as becoming an author and writing a book to share your story or to help other people, and just put yourself out there and risk the risk your worst fears becoming a reality, because the majority of the time it's actually pretty good. It's not as bad as you might imagine in your head. And I had a lot of fear doing the podcast because I was going to put myself out there and I was putting myself at risk of being judged. And believe it or not, they judged. They did. They
Crazy.
proved my fears correct, you know. So I hope that we've done that. I really want to thank you for reaching out and connecting to another stroke survivor and wanting to share your story. You're going to make a massive difference in a lot of people's lives in the way that they perhaps feel about their own challenges, health issues, stroke recovery. And yeah, I wish you all the best. And I hope
Thank you.
I hope you're pulling one of those awards. And
thank you. I'll let you know, but it's next week. We'll find out. So I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me. It truly, like I said before, it means the world to me to have these conversations. So thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your story and for doing what you do, because it truly, truly makes a difference. So thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us on today's episode. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. Subscribe, hit the notification bell to get updates of new episodes as they become available. The more interactions with the show and episodes, the more the algorithm will push the episodes out to the people that need to see it, and the greater the impact the interviews will make to them. Thanks again for being here and listening. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.